we praise you. God, you're an awesome God, and I love you, and I praise your name tonight. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. God, the honor and the privilege, Lord, to serve you, to be your people. God, we love you, and we thank you for the opportunity, Lord, to be here and to worship you and to learn. God, lead us and guide us. Let your will be done in this class tonight, Lord. Let us grow, let us learn, and let your will be done, Lord. In Jesus' name. In Jesus' name. Amen, amen. You may be seated. Janet, why don't you join me here at the front? What we are going to do tonight, and allow me to begin, and I'm going to begin each session with this statement, that these sessions, these two for tonight, will be explicit. And so if you are listening online or watching online, parents should review this in private before deciding if appropriate for minors. We are going to be Christian, but we're also going to be explicit. We're going to deal with some things that you should review before you make a decision about whether it is appropriate for a particular young person. So please do not watch or listen to this in a mixed environment until you have reviewed the materials. All right. Janet and I have decided that we want to engage this as a conversation, and hopefully this won't make you too nervous because neither one of us does very well sitting down. Those of you that have seen me try to do a sit down, you know what happens. I hop up and start walking around. So Janet says, I don't want to sit down anyway. I said, fine, I don't want to either. And so here we go. We're going to stand through most of this. Second thing that I want to say to you is that we are, because of privacy and the issues that we're dealing with that are sensitive, there is no context in which any question any of you would ask us would not in some way insinuate or point towards privacy issues. Any questions that you do have, I encourage you that you, if you have them for me, that you come and you see me either tonight or set up an appointment with me and come and ask them in private. If they are questions that need to be asked of Janet, she will be, as you know, for our family weekends in the fall coming in, and we'll arrange for you to be able to see her as well. So unlike a lot of sessions that we do here where we do take questions, tonight I am specifically not going to take questions. I've entitled this, in fact I didn't even ask Janet's permission for this, but I've entitled both of these sessions as Everything You Wanted to Know But Were Afraid to Ask. Now everything might be a little bit of an overstatement, but not quite. We're going to deal with everything that between Janet and myself, between our experience in life, between our experience of ministering to people, and what we're dealing with now, today, with our society today. We're going to deal with everything that we see needs to be addressed to help you. We are here to inform. And I want everybody to get that within their mind. And I want you to have that in your mind, that word inform. We are here to share with you and inform you. In order for that to be properly contextualized, you need to understand what we're not here to do. We are not here to do your job. And your job is to communicate with your spouse, both about and through physical communication. Your job is to communicate with your spouse both about and through sex. So we're not here to take your job. And if you're here thinking we're going to take your job, you got another thing coming. That's not what we're here to do. We're here to inform you. Now, one of the things that I'd like for us to start with is a kind of a framework, if you will. And the framework is that of boundaries. How many of you found as you serve God that God has boundaries? That's kind of how He makes things safe. He draws boundaries. He gives direction that draws boundaries. And so tonight I want you to understand that when it comes to physical communication, when it comes to sexuality, there are a couple of sets of boundaries that I want you to think about. And the first set of boundaries are those set by God. There are boundaries that are set by God. Okay? The second set of boundaries that we're going to be dealing with tonight, and that I want you thinking about what we say in the context of, are those boundaries that are set by each other. by your spouse, by yourself. They're boundaries that you set. Now, inherent within this framework is you need to understand that these two sets of boundaries should not, and if we are to be Christians, cannot be in conflict. In other words, your boundaries cannot supersede God's boundaries. They can't go beyond God's boundaries. You don't get to overrule God. God gets to overrule you. Okay? But understand that while we talk about God's boundaries, and they are fixed and not movable. Why? Because He's truth. And we've decided that we've committed ourselves that He is truth. Thy word is truth. His Spirit is the Spirit of truth. And so the way that we live, the way that we operate is we are in submission to God. So God and His boundaries when it comes to sexuality are fixed and they are not movable. On the other hand, our boundaries, which are based in our experiences, they're based in our circumstances, and they're based in our preferences. Our boundaries are movable. Now remember what I said before, they cannot be. Our boundaries cannot be in conflict with God's boundaries. But where we all come from are different places. You enter a marriage and you come from a background of being promiscuous, you're going to have a set of circumstances and issues to deal with within that marriage that will place your boundaries at a unique place. You cannot set them outside of God's boundaries. But they are going to be unique to you. And your spouse needs to understand that, because they're going to bring their unique set of boundaries. Now, what happens is that our goal, now remember, I'm talking about our framework. I've not gone to anything specific yet, but I'm talking about our framework. And I'm going to reiterate what I'm talking about here multiple times over the course of tonight. Our goal is to live sexually within God's boundaries, communicate with our spouses about our boundaries, and work to enlarge those boundaries, never beyond God's boundaries, but work to enlarge those boundaries as we learn, love, and give. In other words, we take the other person into account. Now, very quickly, and then I'm going to turn to Janet, let's review 3 principles. I am leaving off principle number 1 from last night, which is if you're going to be single, you must be celibate. If you're going to marry, you are going to be sexual. Because I think that's covered again and reiterated in a different way by principle number 4. Principle number 2 is sexuality is a right and obligation. Balance of the two, right and obligation of marriage. And we're going to come back to that over the course of our discussions tonight. Principle number 3 is marriage is based upon mutual submission, which includes the body. So the wife exercises authority over her husband's body, and the husband exercises authority over his wife's body. And finally, principle number 4 is within marriage, sexuality should not be abstained from. And Paul gives us one concession, which if you think you can pray better, okay, you can take a couple days off. Bottom line is, we are putting our spouse and their needs and wants inside of God's boundaries, tempered by our boundaries, our plural, us and our spouse. We are putting our spouse and their needs and wants ahead of ourselves. While communicating, and this is important, it's not just you put your spouse ahead of yourself, but you must then also communicate to your spouse your needs and wants so that they can also put you ahead of themselves. That's our goal. That's our operating principle, is that we are going to, through mutual submission, put one another ahead of ourselves. Now, this is a journey. if you approach sex as a destination, you're messing it up. God has indicated to us by our circumstances, by all of the changes that come with life, that sexuality and physical communication is a journey that is bounded by His parameters and boundaries, is affected by our boundaries, and that we are supposed to, with our friend, with our companion, with the person that we are not alone because we've come with them. We're living life together with them. We are to be able to explore it, sometimes seriously, sometimes with fun, always with sincerity, always with honesty. It's a journey. It's a journey that you spend with one another. All right, now, what I'm going to do tonight, if you haven't been in one of these sessions like this, Regina and I have done this with Gunger a little bit, is that one of us is going to take the point of running the conversation, of moving the agenda along. The other is then going to respond and interject where they feel appropriate or where they may want to draw attention or draw a contrast or those kinds of things. So I've moved the conversation by starting it. I'm now going to hand the conversation over to Janet, and she's going to carry it forward. I may sit here for 15 minutes and say nothing. And then I'll hop in and say something, and then I may say something, and she may interject, and we'll go back and forth. We will give you a break at approximately the halfway point so we can get a drink of water, use the bathroom, so forth. And then we're going to work very hard to have you out of here on time at 8 o'clock. All right, Janet, turn it over to you. We don't have it on. Sorry. There you go.
Can you hear me now? Yes.
Yep.
It's like the telephone. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right. It's good to be with you guys. I want to caution you, starting off, watch becoming a yeah but. What's a yeah but? Okay? A yeah but is you hear something and in your brain you say, yeah, but this and this and this and this. Yeah, but you don't understand, okay? We all have unique backgrounds. And, where Stephen can, and did last night, speak of where he and Regina are coming from and a level of, if I can call it purity, I did not. I got in church at 25. It's kind of hard sometimes, I know, looking at this 50-year-old up here to think, oh, she kind of knows a little bit about the world. I deal with the world every day in my office. It could blow your mind if I tell you everything everybody's dealing with. You would not probably be able to sleep. I shared with my husband one thing, and he was so upset that I shared it with him because he's like, now I have that in my head. And that's just so gross. I don't know what to do with that. I said, exactly, that's kind of why I told you, so that you can understand just a little bit of what I hear on a daily basis. Well, when I'm working, not when I'm not. So I do hear a lot. I've lived. I'm in my second marriage. So I have a little bit of a different background, different daily experience. When we are talking, we are kind of focusing on the age that, married. So that could be, I guess, late teens. Hopefully not, but late teens. And kind of hitting there in the middle, 20, 30, 40s. I understand as people age that things change. And it might get to a point where it's just not happening. We understand that. But we don't want to teach this for people that are in their 80s or in their 70s. Okay? So there is a level of intimacy that can still happen later in life. We definitely don't want to buy into all the lies that are in the world when it comes to sexuality, right? Sex. What's appealing? What's attractive? We don't need to be doing all the cutting on ourselves, the Botox, the suck this in, push that out, enlarge this part of your anatomy. We don't need to be doing all that stuff. We want to, as Stephen said, stay within those boundaries that God sets. And God knew we're going to get old. I don't really think He gave it Abraham and Sarah as an example. right? So if you're 90 or 91, don't be thinking you got to have a baby. I'm thinking you're not even thinking you necessarily have to have sex, okay? So, but we know that's where babies come from. So at 190, power to them, it won't be this woman, okay? So we want to keep that in perspective. It is age-related. And we don't want to feed into those lies that say, you're 65 and you're not having sex 2-3 times a week. What's wrong with you? Get some pills. Okay. We also don't want to think, I'm 60. If I did that, I'd have a heart attack. Research shows against that, okay? It really doesn't. There are people that can die having sex, but it's not common. And I wouldn't want to be one of them, but it's not common. So we want to keep it all in perspective.
Not a bad way to go out.
Right.
I mean, if you got to die,
it's not a good
I
way.
can think of worse things to be doing.
It's not a good way to go out if you're the one underneath, the one that died.
No, that's true.
Okay. So, especially if he's a little larger and you can't get out. All right. We hear that. I think we hear more, though, of people dying on the toilet than we do of having sex. Okay? Because you strain more that way than you can the other way. All right. So, we'll go on. One issue that I deal with frequently, and we're going to get to a number of them, but one that I deal with often within a marriage is this whole idea of what is intimacy and what is sex and what's the difference. I introduced last night that there's non-sexual touch. Is there non-sexual touch? Do we think there really is non-sexual touch? I don't know if to a man there is non-sexual touch. I'm hoping there is. I mean, from your wife, not list everybody, but from your wife, is there a touch that's non-sexual? I don't know. I know there, as a female, there is. In my counseling session, I have to deal with a whole lot of and say, okay, can you do this? And, can you hold hands? Can you get to the point where you can kiss your wife, and I mean kiss your wife, and then not go to the point of, there's the bedroom. Can a wife come up and give you a really nice, juicy, long kiss, tongue or no tongue, and it not be going, hoo-hoo, let's go? Can she do that? A lot of men tell me no. A lot of women say that's too bad because that means I'm not kissing you then. Because I don't want it to always go there. And I think that's where, I would like to, from Stephen, hear the male perspective on that. Because I am constantly instructing guys to try to have touching, massaging, rubbing, sitting next to each other, taking showers together, doing all in any of this kind of stuff, and it not be that pressure is on that female to have sex. Like Stephen said, it needs to be kind of, what is the boundaries, what's the rights versus obligations. So that's one of the biggest underlying issues that I find with couples is this whole idea of, okay, can I do this without these expectations?
First of all, everybody knows that when I share perspective, I can only share from 2 vantage points. Number 1, my own. That's highly limited. And Janet already gave you that it's very highly limited in a good way. I've only been with one woman. I've only been in a relationship with one woman. Second is my experience as a pastor, which I try to limit to only when I need to know intimate details of your life, because I know that when I come here to preach, you're going to be looking at me and thinking I'm thinking about those things. And I'm not, but it constrains it. That's why I would love to have somebody like my sister living here, because I would refer a lot of things out to a practice like that to maintain the pulpit so that you could get help in dealing with those. So I have 2 vantage points from coming from it. First of all, I think if we talk, instead of talking in absolutes, if we talk in tendency, I think without a question that women because of their relational, the prominence of relationship within sexuality, that they can do touch and it not have any hint of sexuality to it. As opposed to, I think, and again, that's an overstatement, but it's a tendency. What is most prominent? For instance, when we say that men are visual and women are relational, to say a woman is not visual at all would be inaccurate. To say that a man is not relational at all, that would be inaccurate. But the tendency or the emphasis tends to be men are visual, women are relational. So in like fashion, in non-sexual touch, I think women are able to do that more than men. So the tendency is if my wife comes up and gives me, if I got your words right, wet, did you say sloppy? Juicy, that was it. Juicy kiss. Nope, I'm thinking about having sex. Now, let's pause for a minute, though, and ask ourselves the question. The question is not what I'm thinking about. The question is, what do I do? And part of what determines what I do is the communication that I've had with my wife so that I'm tuned into her. So I would say that while, and Regina knows this, she knows if she comes up and gives me a hug or gives me a kiss, there is no shot in anywhere that I'm not thinking, this lady feels good. But our communication can have it that we know, and of course the Rugrats help a lot on that because they're around, so that constrains some of the function and the structure. But we can know, I can know based upon what she's dealing with in that day. I can know where we're at that point in time. I can know when we last had sex. I can know a number of factors of communication that most definitely, in Janet's point, I take. The idea that a man should be able to touch a woman without being sexual, I never bought that one. She says it, I don't totally buy it. Can he change his behavior so as to put his wife ahead of himself? Absolutely. And so my answer would be, again, not in absolutes, but if men are visual, then men, when they touch their wives, are sexual. Doesn't mean that they don't ever touch their wives in a non-sexual manner, but the line is real thin. But again, what happens with your behavior? Now, by the way, let me ask you a question to consider, and then I'm going to turn it back to Janet. Wives, is it really legitimate to be offended that every time you come around your husband, he really likes you physically? Because I promise you, before you got married, you weren't offended by that. So it really, I would put into this that it has to do with what you do with it. And again, the principle that we've introduced to you from the scriptures are, it is not about me. I can communicate my needs or my wants, but it is about her. What are her needs and wants? And as perplexing as it is, I am told by multiple women, including my wife, they like to be touched and not immediately go have sex. That makes no sense to me, but I hear them.
Well, and that's what I hear also, okay? Is that, and like I said last night, women want to be wanted. We like the whole idea that I can kiss my man in a way or touch my man in a way, and I know he wants me. As I stated, in one of those facts that I gave you last night, it is tough on a man if they get to the point of being stimulated, having an erection, and then we tell them no. So part of that, then that responsibility needs to go back on the man. Because like Stephen said, it's what you do with it. Because I want to be able to touch my husband. I want to be able to, kiss him, hug him, do whatever I want, and not necessarily it be like, we got to go in the bedroom. We also have a child at home who, when I told her that I want her in bed at 10 o'clock at night because I want to have a couple hours, she's homeschooled. So I said, I want you in bed at 10 o'clock, and I want a couple hours in the evening with my husband. She said, why, so you can have sex? I said, that's none of your business. So Could be. Don't hide stuff. Kids know. They need to know at a certain age that parents do that. They'd be okay with it. But when it comes to those, physical signs, if we get to the point where it is that pressure, we being females, okay, we get that pressure of, okay, if I communicate physically with my husband my desires, which is to be intimate at a particular level, and then I have this pressure and then they get angry at me, guess what I'm going to stop doing? So some of that responsibility needs to go on the guy to say, okay, what am I going to do with this? Equally, we, females, need to be aware of what I do to that guy. And I don't care if it's how you pick up a piece of paper off the floor or how you walk through the house half naked to get your shirt that's hanging in the laundry room, or if it is, I am touching or responding to him in a physical way. I sit on his lap. So there's things that we do that we need to have some knowledge there. So it's got to be this give and take. It really comes down to the give and take.
A good analogy would be, have any of you ever been on a seesaw and tried to perfectly balance the seesaw? Has anybody ever done that? Or am I the only one that's ever done that? Where you try to get equally balanced. That it's touch and go. Because if one person shifts just slightly, it moves either direction. And that's kind of what is going on, and it requires some tolerance of one another as you are on your journey, as you are learning how the other person responds. What touches are less, can I use the word erotic, to your husband, or less stimulating to your husband?
And what would that be?
Now you're asking me to get kind of explicit, but okay. If my wife comes up and touches my hand, that's a whole lot different than a big, juicy kiss.
Now, see, my husband and I was 36 and he was 42 when we got married. We'd both been married before. We knew. We weren't doing any physical contact because we knew where we were coming from. And we knew what fire that would start. And I guarantee you, first time he held my hand, it was extremely erotic.
Correct. But do you think it's as erotic now as it was then?
He can do it in that way. He can. Can you?
No, Regina's and I, my read is that Regina is different. Okay. When we first did it, and first of all, I grew up, and all of you know that I've taught you that before you're married, get your hands off of each other. Because your body is responsive. It is a sexual organ. It's not only a sexual organ, but it is sexual. And so even if just because you've had sex before and you're going to light a fire, I think that one's all the tinder's laid, and God knows how to combust that really quick, okay? And so Regina and I did not kiss until I married her. But I did fudge the line that I believed in, which was I held her hand. I can tell you flat out. Finally, the Lord rebuked me because, boy, it was fun to hold her hand. But I can tell you right now, it wasn't just, it was sexual.
So let's go back to where we look at where is sex. It's up here.
Right.
So that when we talk about, we can talk about kisses, we can talk about holding hands, we can talk about caresses. It's all up here, right? It's what we do with it. And it's what we think about when that happens. Because we know there's times that our spouse can kiss us. It's just nothing, right? I'm on my way, I'm ready to go to work.
Yeah, I'm on my way out the door. I'm busy. I'm thinking of where I'm going. Yeah, you can probably give me a big, wet, juicy one then, and I'll probably move on.
Right. So it is up here, okay? And it's good for these younger people to hear, okay, the hand hold, that can be really special. Guarantee it. Okay? Just so we talk about, when he held my hand, it was that oxytocin rush. Okay? Bonding. Oh, I'd be very generous. Here, let me bake you food. All right? So it happens. is a chemical. And so we want to look at what's going on up here. So if we take that into consideration, it's up here. That means females and males can both control it. We can control the whole, oh, do I have to? And I'm not always, please understand, I'm not saying it's always the male wanting more and the female not wanting to give it. I see probably a third of my couples, it's the other way. It's the female saying, he just won't. I've seen a couple in their 20s. I think I've referenced them before. Gorgeous woman, attractive guy. She's from Brazil. Very pretty. They'd been married, I think, 2 years, and they'd had sex 3 times. So I'd tell them, okay, go home, have sex tonight. That's all you have to do. Go home, have sex. I don't care what you're thinking. Make it purely physical. You are not to make love. You are to have sex. Out and out sex. Okay? It needs to be with each other, but just have sex. They come in the next week. How'd it go? Well, we got busy doing this and that. And it was him. It was him that wouldn't do it. I have a couple of them, see them right now in their 30s. It's been, I don't know, once in the last 2-3 months. And again, it's him. I've seen couples in their 40s, same thing. Couples in their 50s. There is some people when they're on some medications, antidepressants in particular, can, decrease your sex drive, but it can also make it so men can't get an erection. That's a different situation. I mean, women, we can kind of work through that. We're not going to have the excitement, but when it comes to the passion, though, it is so much up here. I will tell couples often, I want you to go home, and I want you to spend time just looking at each other. You imagine just sitting across from someone and looking at them for 15 minutes? Don't talk. Just look at them. Now, you can sit there and go, never noticed he had nose hair coming out and needed to pull those. He's got extra hair in his ear. And you can sit and do that.
What about her having nose hair?
She could do that too.
Yeah, I know.
But you could focus on that, or you can focus on, man, I love this man. Sit there, look at him. Look at her. Isn't he attractive? Isn't she beautiful? I remember when. Because it's what we do in our minds. And you got to get back. We get so busy sometimes that we just forget to look at each other and remember, who is my spouse? Why am I with this person? And you can't go, I wonder that sometimes too. All right? Because there's your mind going. Pull it back in. But look at them. Truly look at them. I'll instruct some where there's issues, and sometimes it's the female. Okay, you need to lay there naked, lights on. Just lay there. Deal with your anxiety. While he's watching you, of course. You're not alone. Deal with your anxiety about that. There's so much of the, I'm fat. I don't want him to see this. I'm drooping now. No, now I have these lines here from babies and lines here from babies and bulges here and drooping here. And I know all that. I've had 2. I understand all that. I'm 50. I understand that too.
And by the way, men, if when you are watching, if you want to watch again, be smart what you say. I mean, depending on how much you've put into that relationship determines how much you can be kind of ornery. Every once in a while, I'll be ornery and tease my wife about one little thing or another thing. But if that's all you ever do, if that's how you started your interaction, and then you're mad because she won't ever let you see her naked, that's your problem, dude. Why aren't you telling her, hey, I like looking at that? And she goes, oh. Tell her anyway. Say it over and over. Request it of her. Say, hey, let me watch. I'm typically still in bed when my wife gets up. I'll slip my hand over to the side of the bed and get my glasses on, because you know I can't see without my glasses. Get my glasses on and go, oh, I like this show. I mean, there's no show without my glasses. Sorry, folks. I know she knows what I'm watching, because there goes the hand that's down there and putting my glasses on, because I can't see nothing without them. But, you know, I get them on. I go, ooh, I like that show. I've been doing that for a while. You know what? I think she's starting to maybe believe me. She shakes her head at it. She goes, I don't know why. All of the normal self-conscious things, but she still goes, she's even a couple of times giving me a repeat. I go, oh, I like that. And she'll go, oh, you do? And I'm going, oh. Reg and I knew this was going to be fun tonight, okay? So don't everybody get all upset. We knew this was going to be a little fun. So guys, take some responsibility. Overcome some of the negativity by what you say. Not be impatient. Pay attention to what your wife needs and wants. All right.
Well, and we can laugh at what Stephen's saying, but if that's not happening, it needs to be. I mean, my husband's 56, and I'm 50. He'll still look at me and say, man, you're one hot woman. I don't want anybody else saying that to me. When I taught, they had a hot scale as far as professors. I was really glad mine was really low. You know, I want students thinking that, but my husband, and he'll say, just let me look at you. I'm not close, you know, and I'm thinking, I'm so uncomfortable inside. So uncomfortable. But again, I'm not attracted to the female body. I've said this before. I don't have a risk of ever being a lesbian. I am not attracted to the female body sexually. It's okay that I'm not attracted to mine. There is no way for me to see myself like my husband sees me. And likewise for him, he has no idea how I see him. Because the whole weight thing, out of shape, bulges, you know, things popping out where we don't want them popping out and going in where we don't want them going in, that, you know, it happens for males and females. So it goes both ways. And the whole, and weight, you know, excessive weight or lack of muscles, different things, we can get caught up in that, males and females. We need to not. You do not have to be sexually attracted to your own body. Wouldn't that be a little weird? Right? We have names for those people that look in the mirror and go,
yeah, you can see them in the world too. They're crazy. They're off the hinges when they're walking around admiring themselves. Both sexes. You can tell. It's like, what is wrong with you?
Yeah. So we don't have to do that. We do want to communicate it. Let me throw in real quick as far as, you know, with we kind of joked as far as that whole touch thing. But there is touch that communicates, you know, you're safe with me. I'm supporting you. If I had a bad day and my husband comes up and hugs me and even holds on for a while, I know he's not like trying to do something different. He's just saying, I'm here. You can lean on me. I support you. He holds me up, you know, emotionally, spiritually, mentally. So there is that.
Hey, you jogged my memory of something. All of you know that Regina and I have been working for a number of years with a condition that she has with headaches that are very, very bad. I do not understand this, but there are times that she'll come to me and she'll say, I need a hug. And I'll know it's during one of those times where her head is really, really hurting. And during that time, and I don't know if she even knows that she does this, the way that she hugs me is that she tucks in. And I wrap my arms around her and I hold her. that is a non-sexual for me. Never is sexual that way. If we are not communicating that, if that need isn't being met, and we just hug, and she's like this, I will say to her, "What's your arms in my chest for? I want to feel your chest. Get your arms out." See, it's two different meanings. So I'm struggling, working to give you some examples. So yes, there are some non-sexual touches, and that's where, again, I say the emphasis point. What's the default? It's not that there are none, but men do tend to be much more with the touch. It's sexual. Women, I guess, would be relational. It's not that the relational has no sexual to it. It's not that the sexual has no relational to it, but it's an emphasis point. But there's an example of where I know my wife. I know her need. And when she does that, and that's a very intimate moment for us, because for some reason, it helps her head. I have no clue why. Me wrapping my arms around her and holding her, and I hold her for 20, 30 seconds, maybe a minute. I don't know, but it helps her head.
All right, I'm going to cut in and get real kind of specific here. If there isn't all that other, the intimacy of being able to hug, being able to kiss, being able to, communicate on that intimate level outside of intercourse, a lot of females just feel like they're a prostitute. They feel like, okay, fine, have your way with me. You don't appreciate me, you don't love me, it's just a use kind of thing. Because we want more. We don't want, we do want to please our man in the bedroom, but we need some of that other stuff going on. So we don't just feel like, I'm trying to not be crude, like just a body, okay? Because I hear from a lot of wives, I feel like he could be with anybody. It doesn't matter who he's with, he just wants to have sex. I have never heard that from a female, or from a male saying it about a female, okay?
I don't know why.
And so it's...
Hey, wait, I don't know why.
Okay.
Now, I don't know why, because I can tell you flat out, from my vantage point, is that it is not one of the biggest problems I have, and I'm going to jump a little bit ahead, and we'll come back to this, I'm sure. One of the biggest problems that I have had is to be able to give myself physically to my wife when I know, whether due to a headache, which hers can be severe, or whether it is simply that, we've had sex a number of times recently and she's not as interested. It is hard for me to make love to my wife where I know that she's really giving to me. She doesn't really want it herself. Okay. There is a sensitivity of just being used, of just being...
That she's using you?
Yep. Or that either that...
she wants it and you don't.
Correct. It could be that, or it could be the flip of just me wanting her and she doesn't really want me. That's a total shutdown for me. So if she's just a receptacle, if she's just any old body, that's a problem. And by the way, I would say that that's a goal. As Christian men, that's a goal. Your wife is not replaceable by anybody or anything. Now, are we there? Obviously, in your practice, you're not seeing it.
And I think that we're missing each other here. Maybe not. Maybe it's just me off. Because I understand what you're saying from a man, that you want your wife engaged with you. Okay? However, if you never enter, I don't hear the same thing. What I was saying is there are couples where there is not that communication. There isn't the emotional communication. There's not the spiritual communication. There's not the other signs of intimacy going on. Yet there is, the man does want it in the bedroom. He wants to have intercourse, but he's not engaging in any of the other.
And the way you presented it is that is normal for a man. And I'm telling you flat out.
No, I didn't say it was normal.
Okay, because that's flat out.
Okay.
You take that away, and I'm in trouble in the bedroom.
Right.
You take away the intimacy. You take away the communication. I'm in trouble in the bedroom. Not just the woman's in trouble in the bed. I'm in trouble in the bedroom.
Okay. And I didn't mean to make it as that is a norm, okay? I'm saying what I hear a lot in my office. Obviously, the people in my office are having issues. Okay, and you can say, well, the norm is issues, but that's one that I hear frequently is that whole, yeah, but I feel like I'm replaceable. I'm just the blow-up doll. Just something to have sex with. Because he's not. He's watching TV. He doesn't talk to me. He doesn't go here. He doesn't go that. So, no, I'm not saying at all that's the norm.
By the way, guys, if anybody's getting nervous and thinking, ooh, Janet and Steve aren't in agreement. No, 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 no. This is where you benefit, because this is where we purposefully are playing off of one another to help one another, where she might be saying one thing and I go, no, I don't. We're purposefully in tension with one another so you get the benefit of it. So everybody relax. If you were nervous by that interaction, that is intentional. That's going to happen throughout tonight so that we strengthen the message that we're getting out to you. All right.
Okay. So with what we have been covering this whole spring, it's important to have all the parts, not just the physical interaction. It is important to have all the parts. And some of those others might be more important to some people than others. And it's not always across gender lines. Like I said, about a third of the people in my office, it's the other way. Okay? So I was just kind of pulling up one area where you don't want your wife or you don't want your husband feeling, I've never had a man tell me that they feel like they're just, a penis for their wife. I have heard it multiple times the other way. I'm just the blow-up toy. I'm just the person laying here. Or I'm not supposed to just lay there. But now, along that line, okay, so it's important to do all those things that we have been covering. Females, like I mentioned last night, there is often a difference as far as the frequency that we may desire. And it could be we have more, we have less. Stereotypical, we're painted as the ones that want less. But when we do say, okay, this is something important in my marriage, this is something I need to do, even if I'm not in the mood right now, I will probably get in the mood once he starts stimulating me, or I become stimulated, then I'll get in the mood, so I just need to go along with this. It is very discouraging to men to have, okay, just do what you got to do and get this over with. That's not okay.
And that's what I was striking at.
Yeah, that is not okay. It's not the whole whatever you got to do. Because, if you listen to what I covered last night, it is very erotic for a man to hear that you are enjoying what is happening while you're being sexually active. Making those noises, interacting, joining him in the experience. They don't just want someone to just be there. So it really comes back to this whole balance thing and how we give and how we receive. There's those that are way out there, see it, 6-year-old couple, he wants it twice a day no matter what. She's like, I've been doing this long enough. I'm about done. I don't want to do this twice a day every day. He would have it 4 or 5 times a day. That looking at those highs and lows that are brought on by the neurochemicals in our bodies, it's not good to be doing 5, 6 times a day. Up and down. It's just, who's going to shoot themselves up with heroin 6 times a day? So, we want to keep it in perspective of that's like the chemical stuff that's going on in our body. So it is a balance. And it is for both. And it's meeting each other there. It does come back to that whole, do I like this person I'm with? If I don't, I need to start liking them. Not, I don't like them, I'm not going to do anything about it. Because guess what? You used to like them. If you used to like them, you can still like them. Most people don't change that much. We change some. We get to know each other. And you can go, yeah, but, in your brain. I know all that. You can also go the other way. I see people that like stress over, what if I lose my job and what if this happens? I'm like, have you ever thought, what if you win $1 million? What if you get promoted? What if someone gives you a Cadillac? Nope. Why not? Because as humans, we go negative. We'll quit going negative. If your brain's going negative in relation to your spouse, start going positive. You control your brain. Can I switch topics or you want to take a break? Okay. I got to switch then. Let's talk about porn. Porn is a horrible, horrible thing. You're never going to tell me that it's ever okay. I know church people, though, that are starting to watch it together. There is no way that is within the boundaries that God sets out. But let's look at what I talked about last night. Okay? So, and if you watch Gunger, it can go along with what he told you, okay? Since when did this start looking like a vagina? Because I don't know anybody that watches porn and doesn't masturbate. I do know a young man that watches porn and he likes to have an erection for 8 hours and then he masturbates. I hope that I had some success with him. I don't see him anymore. Last I knew he was getting married. If we let boundaries down, we keep going. And I can start off with somebody that's watching porn, and I see some females that are watching porn, okay? But they're watching porn, and I go explicit, okay? You watching, let me just make it a male since that's the majority of the ones that I deal with, okay? Okay. Are you watching females? Yes. You watching children? No. You watching males and females? No. You watching men? No. Okay? Starts off. No, I'm just watching females with a male. Okay? It will frequently change. Because once you cross one boundary, it's not too hard then to cross another boundary. So now what am I watching? And there's so much perverse stuff out there. If you don't know about it, I don't want to tell you, so I'm not going to even mention all of it. But it could be with watching children. That's a really dangerous place to go. So with porn, it's like, well, all right. So if you paid attention to what we said last night with that whole stimulation, orgasm, when I ejaculate, dopamine goes up, then it drops down, and then I have this connection kind of thing going on. What are you becoming connected to? Like we said, if a guy, like I said, if you have sex with this person, then you have this connection, and then this one you have connection, and this one you have connection. So let's say you're watching porn. What are you connecting to?
Images, not a person.
Exactly. Images. And you're rewiring, you're programming your brain to say, this is what I need to be stimulated. I need to have different things going on. I can't even, I can't even be with one woman. Like I mentioned the guy last night. I've actually seen a number of guys that way, where they've watched porn so long that they're not happy. Some aren't even happy with a female anymore, a real live human. They just want to do their own thing. Some, it's hard to be with just the same female for very long. Women don't come out that much. I've only seen 2 women that, have had issues with watching porn. They were both single, so I took a different route with them. And they were Christian. So took a little different route than going, okay, well, let's see how we change this. But if you get into, you got to recognize the downside of porn. It's going to replace it. But then after it's even gone, then it gets in your head. And it stays there. I know it stays there. I'm 50. I haven't seen pornography. I watched some back when I was 18, 19. I could still describe it to you. That was over 30 years ago. It's not because I'm just such a smart person. Those images stay in your head. And then they can mess you up. And they can interfere with the real thing. And, you know, what, like Stephen taught the last weekend, there is such, God wants us to have this real closeness. And there's such a marvelous thing that can happen between a man and a woman if we do allow ourselves to be vulnerable one to another and experience that and grow together. And what porn does is it comes on and it just kills that. But it's so prevalent. It's really hard to come across, you know, people that aren't exposed to it. Because there's some, you know, like I said last night, the whole, you know, wherever you walk, wherever you go, there's people that aren't dressed appropriately.
Yeah, you've heard me say it. We live in a pornographic society. I mean, the billboards got it. The magazines have got it. I mean, you go through the shop, through a market, and you go out and check out, and it's sitting there. There are magazines. Don't start looking at certain magazines. They'll lead to other magazines. That'll lead to other things. That'll lead to other things. And the ones you started with are tabloids. That's all they are. We live in a pornographic society. Now, the good news is if you go back, and I know this personally from my study, if you go back and study the time of the New Testament church, they lived in a pornographic society. So if they can do it, so can we. But we have to understand that there are good habits and there are bad habits. And if you form bad habits, you got to break them. If you form good habits, they're prophylactic. They deter you from forming the bad habits.
So, you know, with the pornography, most spouses that I talk to that has a spouse that's engaging in pornography really feels like it's infidelity, that they're being unfaithful. It's another person. And then there's that whole risk, you know, they feel like, well, what is he or she thinking about them when they're with me? And that messes it up. So it is best to not go there. You know, and we can all say that. We have cell phones now where you can access it everywhere and anywhere. You can put blockers on your TV, on your computers. They haven't come up with one on your phone yet. At least that's what the people I see that are watching it and trying to curb it have told me, you know. Plus, there's so much else on there. There's so much available if you want to pursue it, that we have to be very diligent about protecting our brains, where we allow it to go. And that it goes to females as well. When you get into these, you know, reading things that are sexually explicit, romance novels have changed over the years. They're a lot more explicit than they used to be. I don't know that from reading them. I know that from people telling me that. So if I'm wrong and somebody does read them, you can correct me. But they've gotten to where they're a lot more explicit. We have to watch where we go as far as that whole fantasy thing. And I think we should pick up maybe after the break and talk about fantasy.
Okay, so take a 5-minute break. To 7:10, be prompt so we can get you out on time, all right?